Welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Adapt the Canvas. And we are live. We are live and direct. And this is the session called Inspiration and Creativity. Welcome, everybody who's joining. Good to see some familiar faces. We are going to be diving into the session today on inspiration and creativity. And please leave a comment. Let me know where you're joining from. Questions are welcome. Please put them in the chat. We're going to be diving in deep into the recesses of creativity, into inspiration, and we're going to really drill down into what it's for, why we need it, and what the journey is about. So let's dive in. Inspiration and creativity, are they the same thing? Do you need one for the other? What's the point of having them? Well, think about it. Think about it like this. If you're a creator out there, especially today, and let's frame this. Let's get a good framing and understanding why creativity needs to be on an all-time high. Think about what creativity is, where your ideas are coming from, and why is that important. Let's break this down. We are in 2024. We've got how many handsets on the planet? How many people are uploading content? Let's just do the quick version for the sake of this live stream today. But how many people are uploading content onto these platforms? How many people are competing for your attention? Think about how many platforms, how many social media platforms you're on. Think about your buying decision, meaning where are you going to spend your money when you get paid? What artists are you going to support? And is that artist using creativity, using something that gets your attention, and how are they doing that? So we need to have something that differentiates you between everybody else. We need to have something that inspires other people. You need to be inspired as well. You need to figure out what it is that's connecting your dots, that's going to make people come to you as a creator. And just by way of understanding who we have on this platform, if you're a creator, meaning are you creating art to make a living? Is it a passion? Is it a hobby? Just put something in the chat so I know, and everybody else can try and understand what's going on. And the reason why I'm doing these live streams again, and I've got my company Adapt the Canvas, and we're doing coaching and mentoring and helping creatives understand what their journey is because there's a disconnect between what creators used to do, what's happening now, and what's going to be happening in the future. There's a total disconnect. We've had these conversations about where the creator economy is going. If you don't understand that term, the creator economy, it's the sort of the new space, the term, catch-all term, that's looking at what the music business is, what the design industry is, what the film business is. Like, we're all creators now, and social media has made that possible. You see, someone says passion. Yeah. So keep letting me know whether you're a full-time creator, you're passionate, or it's a hobby, or something that you're trying to get into, and you're looking for tools and tips and inspiration and ideas of how to take your idea to that next level. Stick around. We're going to be diving into, giving you tips and tools and ways to do that and make a living out of it over the next couple of weeks, months. So what is it that that there's a disconnect in? Is that this industry, this whole world, everything is moving so fast, right? Everything's moving so fast that unless we actually understand how we are going to make a living out of this, or use the tools to take your craft to the next level, we're going to get left behind. And so I see there's a few OGs in there, people who've been in this since, back in the day. You know as well as I do how fast this industry has changed and how fast it can change. And look what technology's done in the last, 5 or 6 years, and it's only going to increase even quicker, even faster. So there's Ray Kurzweil. He's a futurist. If you know the sound modules, Kurzweil, that's the same guy who made them. He was one of the first guys to make synthesizers. So he's a futurist, and he's created loads of these sort of ways to see the future. One of his predictions is that we're going to see more change in the next 10 years than we have in the last 20,000 years. So consider that. In the next 10 years, we're going to see more change than we have done in the last 20,000 years because of the speed of the way technology is changing. If that's true, what effect is that going to have on creators like me or you who are trying to understand and navigate in this world and make a living in this world? Like, how do we do that? How do we even keep up? So if you go to business school today, if you're fortunate enough to pay £25,000 a year to go to business school and get an MBA, by the time you finished your first year, that MBA, you haven't done 4 years yet, by the time you finished your first year, the stuff you would have learned would have been outdated. Forget 4 years, just the first year alone, it's going to be outdated. So I think it's really important that as creators we start to really understand, what the technology is available for us, how to start using them, but more importantly, how to use the most important piece of technology, which is our own creativity and our own brains and the imagination that we've got to be able to really understand how to start delivering, art. And so if you joined me last week, you will know that the debate was art or content. So I'm really trying to edit myself so I say art instead of content. If you want to go deeper into that, check out the show that I did last week where I dived in a little bit deeper and really, really spoke about that. But today it's about inspiration and creativity. So, do you need to be inspired to be creative? Well, yes and no. And it depends, right? So as a creator, as someone and remember we preface this with looking at how much content is being put online. And when I say content, I mean the sheer volume of information that's being put online now is staggering. I don't even know the numbers. If anybody out there knows the numbers of the content that's being put online, please put it on here because it's ridiculous. The reason why I frame it like that is because if you're making art, if you're making content, if you're storytelling, if you're making films, designs, dances, BMX tricks, you're a magician, anywhere where you're online and you're having to create something to get people's attention, you better believe that you're going to be competing with hundreds of thousands of people for your audience's attention. And the only thing that separates you from the cat, the cat videos, right, is the edge that you have. And so how do you create that edge, right? How do you create that edge that's going to get you attention more than the cat video? Well, think about it. If you're just competing with everybody else, and so I've spoken about this at length, and if you come to my workshops and my talks, this is a main point that I focus on, is how to differentiate yourself as a creator, as an artist in today's world. So very important. This probably is the single most important factor that you can take away from this video, is how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else? Why is that important? Because, like I just said, we are competing with thousands and thousands of people every day who now know how to upload content, who now know how to, cut and paste, who now know how to, look at the latest YouTube trends and whatever social media trends and just mimic it, copy it, do the same as what everyone else does, and basically get that mediocre result that everybody else gets. And so the reason why inspiration impacts your creativity is because that's how you differentiate. So if you're just trying to, be like, if you're just trying to keep up with everybody, then you might not want to be inspired. You might just want to see what the latest things, what everybody else is doing, and just tag along with that. And that's fine. That's valid as well. But eventually, that's not going to be enough to get you to wherever you want to get to if you're trying to make a living out of it. It won't even suffice you if it's a passion or a hobby, because you'll be bored of it eventually. Something inside of you will demand that you step up and do more and create more and be more. Eventually, that's just what's going to happen. That's called progress, right? And so you're going to have to learn new tools. You're going to have to learn a new way of thinking. You're going to have to learn a new mindset. And in that itself, you will have to go to the next level, which is figuring out how you do more of what you do. One of those things is finding inspiration. What is the thing that inspires you to do the thing that you want to do? What's the story that you're trying to tell? Why do I need to stop what I'm doing and pay you some attention? What is it that inspired you, that when I listen, watch, or read, or feel, that's going to connect those dots for me? Think about the emotional connection that needs to happen, right? And so, if you don't know what I mean, is think about your favorite band, think about your favorite artist, think about your favorite clothes, think about your favorite anything. Is it an intellectual thing that made you like it, or was there an emotional connection that made you like it? And so if you're saying there's an emotional connection, the person that made those things, they were inspired by something. And the way that you're connecting with it is because it reached out to you and there was a story that you connected with, right? And so think about this on a grander scale. Look at all of the people that are at the really high level of the game on any type of creativity and art. How are they telling stories that's impacting us all the time, right? And so inspiration is important because it separates us from everybody else who's not pushing the boundaries, who's content with just being normal, who's content with just subsisting and being like everybody else. Because let's face it, the next jump up isn't for everybody. Most people don't want to do the work that entails, right? Most people are just comfortable. To get to the next level in your career, to get from a hobby to this thing, is going to require some work, right? Even finding that inspiration is going to require some work. It's going to challenge you to do something that you're uncomfortable doing, right? Or maybe not used to doing. Maybe the uncomfortable bit comes later on down the line, and we can get a little bit more into that conversation, because this is what separates great artists from from good to great. The people that are willing to do that extra work, that people are willing to do that extra bit of effort, finding out what inspires them, using that inspiration to translate into a story, to communicate that story through their art form. And this was about mastery of craft as well, right? Is this making sense to you guys out there? Let me know if this is making sense to you. Because I feel like my job right now as a creator is to give back and to tell you guys about how, the scene that we started, jungle music, 20, 30 years ago, how we did it, how we started it. And we were passionate people who didn't have anything else. We were passionate, we were creators, and we studied the equipment, we studied the technology, we studied the people around us. We grew up in an era of great music. No disrespect to the music today, but the 80s, right? If you were out there and you're an 80s kid or a 90s kid, you know that the 80s music is one of the best generations of music there ever was. The 70s, I was lucky enough to be around in the 70s as well. Now I'm showing age. But the 70s music as well, listening to what my parents were playing in the house, my older brother was playing in the house, that's some of the best music that was ever created. We're still trying to emulate those eras now. Some of the music today is, it's all right. It's technically it's brilliant, but a lot of the soul, a lot of the energy, a lot of the vibe is missing. And I know a lot of people are saying the same thing. And why is that? I don't know why. I feel like my job now is to just tell people what I've known, what I've learned, how we created Full Cycle, how we created, my coaching brand, That the Canvas, how we've taken these ideas, how we look at creativity out there, and how do we join the dots. And so that's my mission. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's why I'm spending so much time over the next coming years teaching, giving back, because I want to see a creator industry that's full of powerful creators who are confident, who are passionate, who are clear on what they want to do. They want a legacy. They want to change history. They want to make a dent in the universe, And if you're delusional enough to think that you can do it, stick around, because I'm one of the delusional ones who thinks they could change the world through art as well. Or else, why else are we doing it? Right? You got to be delusional. You got to be unreasonable, right? And you got to be unrealistic. And when you live in those spaces, and when you dive into your imagination from that point of view, something magical happens, right? And so that's what this is about. This is about really understanding, how do we get ourselves inspired? Where do we find inspiration from? And how does that affect our creativity? So you're going to hear me talk a lot about storytelling, right? Because storytelling is the foundation of art forms, of what we're doing, of being an artist, right? An artist's job, right, is to tell great stories, right? They need to be inspired, and they need to use their craft. And your craft is what you devote your life to, is your vocation. That's the craft. The craft of being a craft of making music, for instance, is studying the greats, is going around listening to classic musicians, being a connoisseur, understanding where, a drummer got their sticks made and the skins that he got on a snare drum, where did he get them? Like studying the craft. Studying it more than other people, knowing more than other people. Why? Because when you know and you've studied and you've gone into the practice, you raise above the level. This is another way to raise above the level, raise above the noise. And then we switch from creating content to creating art. You switch out of feeding the algorithm to feeding your soul, right? And you switch from people who just consume to people who become connoisseurs. It's a different mentality, right? You stop being the product, right? Because that's all we are when you're on the social media structure. You're the product. Then you become, a lover of art form again, right? And you start to expand, right? You start to expand your vision. You start to expand your passion, your palette, and your wonder and your curiosity, and all of a sudden the way that you talk to other people about what it is you're doing completely changes, right? And this is where the word of mouth comes in. So I have a thing called Always On Marketing, which is based on word of mouth, which comes from this passion, this comes from the art form, that comes from creativity that's inspired. See how all things are connected. This is like the flywheel effect. Once you start mastering this whole thing, you start to understand how all this whole thing works together. You start to understand, like, it's not just enough just to be really good at making music. There are people out there who were back then way more technical than me at making music. They knew about frequencies that I was totally unaware of. They knew how to use synthesizers way better than me to get better sounds. They knew how to, EQ the hell out of a track to make it sound better when it was being mastered. But they probably weren't as good as me as storytelling. They probably weren't as good as me as actually connecting with the soul and the spirit of my music, because some of those people aren't here today. And some of their music may not even be listened to today. Whereas some of my music is being listened to, and I'm still passionate and in. We back. Sorry about that. Some people might not be as passionate as I was about connecting the dots, finding out how to tell better stories, finding out how to put more of my soul into the music, right? Because when you break it down, if you look at some of the stuff that really touches you, it's not necessarily stuff that's really, really technical. And I'm not saying the technical aspect isn't important. I'm not saying technical people aren't tapped in. There are lots of people out there. But if you were put in the technical side and the emotional side wins out every single time. We are emotional beings. We are tuned into our emotions. We are tuned into storytelling more than we are how, accurate a right angle is or how straight a line is. We're not tuned into that as much. The first thing is this emotional reaction. It's like if you looked at the statistics on how human beings react, it's emotions first. We're emotional beings first. We react to an emotional story first. And that is the power of, understanding of how all of these things work together. This is a masterclass. What I'm doing today, I'm just giving you the highlights of how this whole thing works. But I think I'm going to be posting next week, posting by the end of this today, about a workshop that I'm going to be giving next week that's going to go a lot more deeper into the stuff. So if you're interested, stick around. I'm going to give you the details for that. But that emotional impact is what changes, whether your track is a classic or not, whether your clothes that you've made is going to be veered as classics or creating your legacy, right? Because when you think about it, think about all the stuff that you consider classics, legacy, gone beyond, the boundaries of what we think about right now, and it lasts for 10, 20, 30 years. Was it because it was so technical, or was it because it touched a part of you? I don't know anybody who says, my God, that analytical right angle is beautiful, right? We don't speak like that. We say, yo, I'm feeling that. That's got vibes. That's got energy. Yo, that looks good, right? So we're looking for feelings. We're looking for emotions. We're hearing the stories. If you see a great painting, you go to a museum and the guide will tell you the story of the painting. They won't tell you what the technical aspects of it. They used this chisel and they bashed it at this angle. Sorry, if it was a sculpture, sorry. They used this angle and they chipped it away here. Or if it's a painting, they used this certain brushstroke and they used this oil. They might tell you the mixes but that's not what sold it. It's the story about how it became this painting. That's what we're transfixed on. Oh wow. Oh yeah. Oh, he did that. Oh, she did that. Oh, she went through this. They went through that. They were refugees and they sailed from one island to another in a storm, and one of them nearly drowned and they pulled him back in, and the piece is about that journey across the treacherous seas, and the picture of and straight away you are transfixed. right? You're into the story, and oh my God. Do you know what I'm saying? Boom. It's reminding you of something. Boom. You got, if you're a creator, boom, you're inspired. Oh wow, maybe I should be telling more stories about stuff that was meaningful to me. Stuff that, the story that I heard the other day. Maybe I can, right? Straight away now, the wheels are turning. The mindset's going to a whole nother level, right? You start to see things totally differently. Start to think about things totally differently, right? Because now your creativity is going to a different level. Why? Because you can't be inspired and your creativity, your art, or your craft stay the same. It just won't happen. You haven't been inspired then, right? To have this happen to you and to not have any feeling from it, like if you're a creator, it won't happen. If you hear an impactful story, if you're in an impactful emotional experience, and you're a creator or a storyteller, the output from that will be an impact. Right, how's it going to impact you? Think about it. What are all the aspects of your creativity that inspiration could impact? Right? What are all the aspects of it? Where do you get your ideas from when you're in your environment starting to create? What is it that the materials? What materials are you using? Could the materials now change? Could you get them from somewhere else? Could you be inspired to look in other places? Could you be inspired to look more into nature for some of your ideas? Could you, if you're making stuff that's based on nature, could you go into different textiles? Could you go into different textures? And this is about, last week we spoke about this. This is about this cross-fertilization. If you're a music person, don't look at other people in music for inspiration. Go and look at ballet dancers. Go and look at people who do motocross. Go and look at someone who's doing science. Be inspired by the way that these people think. Look at the way that they're using technology. Look at the way that they think, ask them questions, and use that to get your own creative juices going, right? Figure out, and remember, this is all prefaced for one on this whole idea that the industry is saturated. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why inspiration and creativity go together, because we're trying to understand how do we rewrite our story so we stand out. Because if everybody else isn't doing this, if everybody else is competing on shorter intros for SoundCloud, if everybody's competing on, louder basses because they saw some tutorials, or the last tune that they heard is huge, or the only brand that gets a front cover of Vogue looks like McQueen or Gucci, is like, we need to be able to think differently. We need to be able to break the mold. We need to be able to break that hypnotic trance that everybody's in, sleepwalking around. This is the norm, this is the norm. It's like, we need to be able to wake them up with something that they don't recognize, something that they don't normally see, something that jars them out of that slumber. So we need to be in ourselves inspired first. We need to start putting these ideas together and pushing them out to people, changing the way that people see, perceive, and accept what these things are. Because at the moment, it's only like 1 or 2% of people out there actually doing something different. Not you guys, right? You guys are here listening to me because you are creators. You are ready to step out. You are already stepping out. You are looking for more tools, more ideas. You want to push yourself further. You want to push yourself to the space where you're really uncomfortable, where you know that the next part of your journey exists somewhere else. So like I said, one of the things I've got down is, where do we find inspiration? Where do we find inspiration? Everywhere. You start looking for it. It's everywhere. You can be inspired by everything around you. It's just, you need a new way of seeing the reality around you, and a new way of asking new questions. It's like, what is it that you are trying to achieve? If you're a creator out there and you are for instance, let's break it down. If you're a creator out there and you want to take your ideas to the next level and you want to become a full-time creator, getting paid for what you love to do, the first thing I would suggest you to do would be to create your own identity, right? Why do you need that? Because if you don't have your own identity, right, and you just look and sound and feel like everybody else, guess what? Everybody else is going to see that and treat you the same as everybody else. And eventually you won't get their eyeballs. Eventually you won't get the attention. Eventually you won't be able to make a living out of it because there's nothing different about what you're doing. If you don't provide something that's different from what's already here, why does somebody need to stop using their brand that they love, trust, know and like to come and consider what you do? You need to be different. You need to have different ways of presenting what you're doing. You need to operate on a new level. So the first thing to do is, when you are considering making whatever it is you're making, what's your why? Why are you doing it? Right? And once you've answered your why, then you can start figuring out what does that why mean, and how do you actually start creating the story around that why that really tells your story, so that when other people see it, they notice it's different straight away. If you're a person whose career is in this creative industry and you're making money out of it, but you want to go to that next level, consider creating something, a project that differentiates what you're doing from everybody else. If you're, for instance, if you're into music or, doing fashion, and you're just doing one drops at a time, maybe you're just doing one single or one EP, maybe you're just doing one t-shirt, maybe you're just doing one hat, time for a collection. It's time to tell a bigger story. If you're a singles, it's time to do some sort of compilation, some sort of album, some sort of mixtape. Why? Because that's going to differentiate you from everybody else, and it's going to give you time to tell the story of a longer period of time. Same thing with a fashion brand. If you're just making a hoodie and a t-shirt, maybe it's time to spread out a bit now and try and create something that is a bit more evolved. Maybe it's a whole line. It's some trousers, it's dresses, it's t-shirts, it's hoodies. Maybe it's your own version of a t-shirt. Maybe it's your own version of clothes, right? Why is this important? Because eventually, to get to that next level, you've got to be doing something that other people are not doing, right? And if everybody's doing the same thing on that same level, you're a career artist, career creative, and you're doing what everyone else is doing because you think, well, this is what everybody else is doing, then, and your career's not moving forward, then that's the problem. You can't do the same thing everyone else is doing and complain when your career isn't moving forward. Because look at the people you're following. What are they doing? How are they doing what they're doing? So if you're following people that are in your industry doing the same thing as you, and you're just doing the same thing as them, guess what? You're all not moving forward. You're all doing the same thing. You're all, copying each other, and you're not going to that next level. And then you look at the 1 to 5% of people who are taking that thing to the next level, they're doing something completely different. And it might look the similar type of thing to yours, but you don't know what they're doing from the mental perspective. Look at their storytelling, compare their storytelling to your storytelling. How different is it? What's their storytelling about, right? And I'm jumping around a bit, but there is a way to do it, and there is a structure to it. And like I said, next week I'll do a masterclass where I can go a lot more deeper into one specific area of it for a long period of time, so we can really, really grasp it. But really, this is a very deep way of constructing this whole idea. Let's look at the third person in this scenario. Maybe you're a creator who wants to move on to the next level of your career. Maybe you don't want to do what you're doing anymore, and you want to transition out into something else. Maybe you see your career going a whole nother level, right? And you're not getting there. You're doing the same thing again, right? Because we're doing the same thing on each level, right? We might see somebody out there who we see, who's been doing what they're doing for 10 years, and we might see them up there and we might think, whoa, they got an amazing career. You better believe that even those people up there we're thinking they've got this amazing career, they're thinking about what's their next level. They're thinking about what they need to do to challenge themselves to go to that next level, whatever that next level is. And so, whatever level you're on, there is another level. There is a way to scale up. There is a way to get to the next level. And so that person who wants to get to, maybe shift careers, maybe they want to, maybe they've seen, something that they want to aspire to that isn't in their industry, and they want to go to another industry. They want to maybe have a career change. They want to maybe switch, vocations, right? How do they do that? Well, again, what's your why? First of all, get clear on what your why is. Then you have to create something, again, that is so different, so unique, something that isn't your average, normal, everyday thing. So on every level, it's about going beyond. And so why don't people go into these next levels? And so now I'm just a little bit into a whole different area of this, but I'm going to finish this train of thought. Why don't people on each of these levels do what is required to go to the next level? Because it makes them uncomfortable. And the only way to shift out of where you are into that next place is to be uncomfortable. And this is why most people will stick to what they know in their field, and they'll end up doing what everybody else does in that field because it's easier to do that. It's a little bit harder for two reasons to do what I'm suggesting to do. One, there's not much training around for it. Two, it makes you feel, like you're sort of leaving the pack, as it were. As social animals, we like familiarity. We like to know like everybody around us is the same as us. The minute people start to do this work, it shakes them up and they become uncomfortable and they want to stick to what they know. The problem with that is it doesn't get to the next level. So now we're into the spiral of beliefs about ourselves and what we're capable of, and that's a whole nother talk. But the people that are really good at this understand that journey. So again, where do you find inspiration, right? If you're looking to go from a passion to a full-time career, figure out what's going to inspire you. Do something different. Don't follow the trend on any of these levels. It's not about following the trend. It's about doing something different. It's about following people who are constantly pushing you to do something different. It's about finding out what makes you unique, and it's about telling a story from that perspective. And then it's getting used to recognizing that for you to keep going and moving up your career ladder, as it were, what groups and networks can you join that are already doing that can push you, because it's going to be a bit uncomfortable for you to do that by yourself. So you will need people around you to do that. So let's focus a little bit on storytelling, because once you get the inspiration, once you get the clarity, then you're going to have to put it together into a package. You have to put it together into something that people get excited about. And that's what we call storytelling, right? What's the best storytellers? People who write books and write films. Think about it. If you think about, someone like the woman who wrote all the Harry Potter books, great writer. Look how successful she was. Look how many books that she wrote. Look how well she grabbed people's attention. Think about it. Like, did you ever used to see the Apple as well? Let's get onto Apple, but I'll tell a bit more about the Harry Potter stories. But did you notice how people, when she dropped a book, there was these queues around the corner? Same thing with Apple. These people are great storytellers, people that can build the picture in your mind of a world that you need to be a part of. Can you do that? Can you figure out how you construct this world that people need to be a part of, that people want to spend time in, that people want to spend money to be a part of? That's your job as a creator. Like I said, the good creators figured it out. People have come through those systems. People have come into these systems because what they like I said before, there's an emotional connection there. There's an emotional yeah, there's an emotional connection there where people are tuning into what that vibe feels like. They see it, they feel it, and what do they say? Yeah, I want to be a part of that. I need to be a part of that, right? And so that's the thing that we're trying to connect the dots with. Like, how are people, doing that? And we're telling good stories. Even people who are naturally great at forming this seamless thing, they might not be consciously doing it, but unconsciously they've been able to connect the dots. They've been able to seamlessly put this thing together, this adventure together, and people are buying into it. People are connecting to it. People are saying to themselves, "What I feel something in that. There's something in that connects them. There's something in that makes them want to be a part of that whole thing." And so again, we're seeing the difference between those people because why? They've connected the dots previously coming into that. They understand their craft. They understand their why. They understand their motivation. And the most important thing is they're not afraid to stand outside of the norm. They're not afraid to stand, by themselves to tell a unique story, to tell their unique perspective. And so think about that. And so again, these are building blocks. These aren't things that you just do once and it works. These are things you add on to what it is you're doing that become your new story, your new identity, and you live from that perspective. You tell your story from that perspective. But think about that. Like, how are you doing that? How are you, standing in your own, space, even when it's uncomfortable? Even when you've got your conviction about who you are, do you feel sometimes you need to go with the flow? Do you feel sometimes oh, you know what? Let's just do what everyone else is doing. It's like, if you're in that mindset of just easily being you easily fold when things don't go right for you. And this is one of the big things about being a creator, especially now where it's so enticing to be popular. It's so enticing just to get a big following. It's so enticing to get loads of likes and to want to be popular. It's like, that's the trap. That's the trap, is buying into the social media algorithms. That's the trap. Is like, you want to stand in this space where nobody else is. You want to stand in the space and claim what it is that you are, right? And when you do that, that's when your thing starts to happen. There's a saying that Kevin Kelly he's a writer. He coined this term 1,000 true fans, as you guys may have heard of it. So there's this myth online that we need hundreds of thousands of people so that we can make a living online. Well, he proved that you only needed 1,000. But you have 1,000 true fans paying you £10 a month. Do the maths, right? That's what you need. So what I'm drilling down into is this whole idea. Once you get all these pieces right, and then you connect with your 1,000 true fans, how much time and energy do you need to put into being, online, trying to satisfy the algorithms when you've got your core audience who you can satisfy? Which one do you want to do? Do you want to make content for the algorithm, or do you want to make art for your 1,000 true fans, right? So this starts to change the game a little bit, because most people are thinking, I can't make a living online doing what I'm passionate about because I need to get thousands and thousands of fans. No, you don't. That's the old idea. Kevin Kelly came up with this idea like 15 years ago, and he popularized it then, but it hasn't seeped through to the majority of creators yet. So if you're out there and you're trying to figure out how to put this together, you can create your thing, your dream, your story, your brand, your idea that's uniquely you, and you can then find 1,000 people that will buy into that, right? And you can use, I'm not going to go down that road, but YouTube and blah blah blah. We had that conversation last week. You can find a community or a platform to be able to meet those needs and get those people on to help you build. Here's the other thing. It's going to take time. It's going to take a while, right? It's not something that's going to be, an overnight sensation. Remember, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Yes, I said that. 10 years to become an overnight success. And here's the thing, you want it to take that long because you want to be able to learn, to go through all the stages of your growth so that you fully ingrain it and understand it so that you can then anticipate where it goes. And that's a sort of an advanced understanding of what it takes to become successful long term, right? Because success isn't the destination. Success is something that you do along the way and it helps you learn, get the memory, the muscle memory, so that when things don't go the way you want, you can easily course correct, right? So you got to really get what I just said then. Success is about getting the muscle memory so that when things go wrong, you can course correct. Because if you just go straight in and you're one of those people who got success really quickly and you didn't have to, do the work for it, the number one problem I see with those type of creators is that when shit goes wrong, they crumble and fold quickly. Whereas the people who've spent 10, 15 years building their career, they've got stamina, they've got endurance, they've got the ability to carry on even when, things don't work the way they know things the way. Even when things don't work the way they want them to work, they still can carry on. Why? Because they understand the pattern. They've got knowledge and a history of the patterns of how they built up over time. Whereas somebody who hasn't got that in their nervous system, all of a sudden to them, they're like, they got a problem, this means this. When in reality, it doesn't. A whole nother workshop, we'll get into that next week or in the next couple of weeks. So, we talked about storytelling, we talked about the impact of why it's important, because think about it, all of these things, when they start to come together, they start to chip away at what it is, the big problem that creators are saying, I'm not making any money, I'm not getting visible. There's not much, like I said, there's not much training around for what it is that most of the people that are in these positions know instinctively, and most of the people who are observing this thing don't know, right? A lot of these schools, a lot of these platforms, they're not teaching it. A lot of the stuff what I'm talking about, you will be able to learn if you study design thinking, right? They're not teaching this sort of design thinking in music colleges. They're teaching some of this stuff in like fashion colleges, fashion universities, but a lot of it is still missing because a lot of it's going to be outdated because of the way that technology and the way that industry's moving so fast. So the reason that I'm putting this stuff together is because I'm studying it, and also I've got history and knowledge, but also I'm in the trenches as well, just like you guys. I'm building, I'm figuring it out. So I'm sharing best case practices, things that I know absolutely work. They're the principles, they're the solid foundations, they're the tools that's built creativity. Those platforms and principles, they have not changed, right? If you go right back to the pyramids in Egypt, right up to studying Banksy, the principles of creating long-lasting things are embedded in that philosophy, in that way of thinking. Those are non-negotiables. And if you understand to stop running after the bright shiny toy and to start studying the principles, start studying the structures of psychology, start studying the structures of mindset, start studying the structures of mastering your craft. When you start studying the structures of those things, they are ubiquitous over any discipline. Car manufacturing, painting, architecture, dancing, comedic practices. It's the same structure. When you start breaking it down, there's only one structure, and that is synonymous with consciousness, reality. We can go really deep into it, but you ask anybody who's at the 1% of their skill and they'll tell you the same thing. You ask another person who's at the 1% of their skills level, they'll tell you exactly the same thing, but they got two different disciplines. Because it's the mind. They understand how to work and master the mind. And once you get deep into that, everything starts to become very, very similar. But the output of what you're using it for, it can be very, very different. And that's what this is all about, understanding that at that level. So, where does this all lead to? A battery running out. Yeah. Let's go, let's go. Okay, okay, good, good, good. Is that going to be alright? Okay. So, where does this all lead to? Sorry, just technical problems, guys. Sorry. So, where does this all lead to? So, when you break it down, we got to start thinking. For real. I know that's what I've been trying to do, trying to balance it. Thanks, Benji, man. So, where does this all lead to? You know, you start breaking down this whole idea of like who are you? So this, like, when you really start drilling down into this whole thing, like, there's a disconnection between like who you are, how that affects your art, and you know how you create the type of reality success that you want to get to. People think, well, how does that get me make me a living in that whole thing? Well, it's really understanding that the two things aren't separate. It's just one idea. You know, it's like it's just one idea that is very deep in its way of being, not presented, but it's a very deep sort of understanding of how you create art, right? And how art becomes commerce. If you follow people like, or you did some research on someone like Picasso or Andy Warhol, you break down how they created the business model behind what they did. Those guys were very, very successful. They didn't compromise their art, but they made a good living out of it. And so that's my mindset. I'm not going to compromise my art, but I am going to make a good living out of it. And I have made a good living out of it. And I continue to make a good living out of it. And I also have a legacy, right? And so that wasn't by accident. That was by design. I thought very long and hard about making art from the, I was fortunate. I was hanging around with lots of people in Bristol that thought that way. The great Smith and Mighty, who, I was fortunate enough to spend, years with, standing in the corner listening to those guys making music. If you don't know Smith and Mighty, where these guys were like the pioneers of what we call now the Bristol sound, I was like in the studio for years just listening to those guys talk, listening to the music, soaking up, the craft. Another thing you guys can do if you're coming up, even like actually on any stage of your career, go and be an apprentice again. I'm looking to be an apprentice. I want to go and learn more about AI and design. And I'm thinking about going see if I can find a space where I can do some of that stuff and be the fly on the wall again, because I know it works. For me, my best learning is to be in an environment where people are already doing the stuff so I can pick it up. I'm a visual, auditory, kinesthetic kind of learner where I need to be in the space where people are doing it. If you tell me what to do, it will have like about 5 to 10% impact at best on me. But if I'm in the environment and I'm sat next to you and you say, Kate, move that there, put that there, put that there, do that there, within two or 3 weeks of that, I'll get it. That's just how I learn. Figure out what type of learner you are, and then put yourself purposely in the environment that you want to be in, of the stuff that you want to learn, and you will learn by osmosis, by being in the environment, by soaking it up into your pores, into your nervous system, into your environment, in your awareness. You will learn on another level that you just can't get from books, and we all know that anyway. But there are some people like who are good, who can learn like that. It's just not me, right? So find out what it is that you want to do, and then spend some time around those people who are doing it, right? Another way to be inspired as well is to be around these groups that are doing it. Right. uh, and be around those groups that are doing it anyway. So, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you're really fired up about doing? Find the groups that are doing it. That's where you're going to find the next level of inspiration. That's where you're going to find the next level of your jump, as it were. So again, most people are thinking that it's a technical thing. Maybe it's a loudness thing. Maybe it's a design thing. Maybe it's an exposure thing. Maybe it's just connecting with the people that are doing it so that you can find out, what the 1 or 2% things that they're doing that are counterintuitive. So most people think that, oh, it's logical, it's linear. It's not. Sometimes it's counterintuitive. Sometimes it's not what you think it is. Sometimes it's, a totally unobvious thing, or it's an obvious thing, right? But you won't know until you're around these groups of people that are doing this stuff that can actually start to shape and mold you in a slightly different way. And like I said, this is the shift towards your identity. This is a shift towards who you're becoming. This is a shift towards your next step. This is a shift towards this next part of your career, your life, your dream, your next reality, your next shift. Whatever that next shift is, you'll need to look for the inspiration, the fire to move it, to get to that next level, to get to whatever it is that you really want to get to. So, we've covered quite a lot. Inspiration and creativity. Are they the same thing? Do we need them? No, they're different things. One informs the other. We want inspiration to help boost our creativity. Why? Because we want to separate ourselves from everybody else. We want to separate ourselves from the pack. We want to separate ourselves from what everyone else is doing. Why? Because we know once we've done that, we can at least have an opportunity to get the attention that we need from the audience that we want to get some kind of recognition and to start the ball rolling. Is it a fast track? No, it is not. It is not fast track. It is a vocation. It is your craft. It is your art. And so it takes time. It's about learning. It's about grafting. It's about becoming something. And that takes years. Like I said, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So it's stepping stones. It's planning it out. It's where do you want to be? It's understanding your why. It's learning your craft. It's finding that inspiration. It's finding that group. It's being able to think different. It's being able to be uncomfortable in that space for long periods of time until it becomes your new normal. Till you become that version of yourself that is capable of doing this new thing, right? And so that in itself is a commitment, and to have that level of commitment, that's your vocation, right? That's your thing that you're going to do that defines who you are, separates you from everybody else, separates from you from the people that aren't willing to do that work, aren't willing to step into that space, who don't want to, who are not capable of doing that, right? So that's something for you to learn to get to the next level. So, next week, Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a masterclass, and that will go a lot deeper into the stuff that we've been talking about this week and last week and the week before, and that is about how do you shift your mindset to that next level. If you're interested in that, there's going to be an invite on this page and on my Adapt the Canvas page where you can join, and we'll sit down together next week. We'll be on a Zoom, so there'll be more interaction, and we can be able to go a lot deeper, be a bit more of an interactive session where we'll be able to ask questions. I'll be able to talk to you more as well, and we can figure out how, what your problems are, what's the biggest thing that's stopping you, and find a solution to at least start taking the next couple of steps. So let's talk more about cognitive spaces. Yes, we could do that. Yeah, please leave some comments. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. Let's figure out how we want to shape this. This is for you guys as much as, for me. I want to give as much value from my experience as possible. I want you to leave things, comments in here about what it is that you're struggling with it. Like, what is the thing that's stopping you from getting to that next level? Is it communities? Is it groups? Is it better teaching? Is it knowledge? Whatever it is, leave a comment in there so that I can figure out how to best help you, direct you as well. Like I said, we're working on a new platform as well, so that's coming soon. So that would be similar to this, but more resources, more content, more information for you guys as well. So that's definitely coming. Next week we're going to do a masterclass. So please look out for that. And again, thank you guys for tuning in and listening to Adapt the Canvas. We're back regularly now every Tuesday, so we're going to be diving into more content, more ideas. And if you've got things that you want to discuss, like I said, leave it in a comment, and then we'll start to put a library together of ideas. The pyramid of needs, I like that. Finding outstanding producers, but it's happening. It's good. Good. Yeah. So on the new platform that we're creating, we'll have better libraries and we'll have better facilities for all this information, so that it'll be easily able to be found. Also, as well, I will be putting up a lot of my coaching stuff in my private communities. That will be available soon, preferably on our members platform. So I go a lot deeper into a lot of these subjects, and these are 2-hour sessions that we go into as well. So we've got over 4 years worth of content as well, so that's going to be made available. How do I send zip files? Hence mix online to listen back to was never taught computers. Oh, so again, listen, DMB ARCs. That's a great question, and I'll probably be able to answer that afterwards, or if someone else is in the group wants to answer that, please do. So thank you everybody for tuning in this week. This has been a great session, and the comments are brilliant. I'll go into them, and I'm going to respond to all the comments personally. We'll be back next week for another episode of Adapt the Canvas, the creators conversation. Again, leave something in the comments about what you want me to talk about next, what you're struggling with the most, and we will get to that, and we will tailor all the next couple of shows around things that are most interesting to you guys, so you can get the most out of these sessions as well. So thank you very much. Namaste. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you all next week for another session. Okay, nice one, guys.